Well, all right, welcome everybody. We're going to get started here. So this is the Spring Biodesign Institute Town Hall. Thank you everybody for coming, and I apologize in advance for my voice here. I'm just at the end of a little bit of a cold here. So as per usual, what we want to do at the beginning is we want to welcome all the new people at Biodesign. So if you've never been here before at one of these events, can you please stand up? I know we got a few of you. Woo-hoo. All right. So we don't have time to really go around and have everybody introduce themselves because we got a pretty busy agenda today, but I wanted to at least do that. All right, so no, this is not advancing. Oh, we're going to do it this way then, are we? How do I advance the slides? Oh, okay. All right. We can do that too then. All right. Very good. Okay. So very quickly, you're going to have a group of us presenting today. So I will give you some quick updates on the executive side. Steve will give you his updates. Kerry will talk about philanthropy. Tamara will talk about the operations. Elena will talk about human resources. You can kind of read this, so I don't want to read it all for you, but you get the general idea. And hopefully we'll get this all done in the 1 hour or so. I do want to mention at the very beginning, some of you may have noticed that we are not doing the after hours event that we often do. We've been doing that coupled with the town hall, but what we found is that the people who go to the town hall are at a disadvantage because by the time they leave the town hall and go to eat, there's a huge line waiting for them already at the food. And so what we've decided to do is sort of separate the events. And we will do an after hours event coming up soon, but that way everybody will have free run at the food at the same time. So, okay. All right, so, and then I'm going to just remind folks that if you have questions, at the end we'll have a question and answer period. Certainly feel free to stand up and ask your question, but if you're shy, we have passed out cards and you can jot your question down on the card and pass them up and we can talk about those. Okay, so let me do the executive report. So I'll just mention a few folks who've come in terms of recruitments that we're looking at in terms of possible new centers. As some of you may know, we've had a couple people out already thinking about the idea of building a green chemistry center. So, the concept behind this is that, as you know, our world has been changed dramatically in the last couple centuries by the development of various chemistries that produce everything that we use and touch in our lives. But there's a consequence of that, which is that a lot of those chemicals use difficult solvents and end up producing byproducts that are difficult. So there are a number of scientists who are developing new ways of doing these kinds of chemistries that are a lot cleaner and that don't result in so much of the byproducts. And we think it'd be very cool to have a center like that here at Biodesign. Shannon Stahl just gave a talk. He was here just at the end of last month. Some of you saw him, and very interesting talk, very exciting. It's not clear yet whether Shannon would be able to come out here for potentially family reasons, but nonetheless, we're very excited about this, and we're going to continue building on this notion of identifying, someone interested in this space and who's willing to build a center with us. Tomorrow or Thursday, Michelle Bell will be coming. This is her second visit, so I encourage you all to welcome her and say hello to her. She is a scientist who studies the effect of air quality on human health, so sort of a population scientist, but also does lab work a little bit with that. And everyone loved her when she came the first time, so we're very excited about trying to recruit her here, and we want to show her a good time. So she's coming here mostly on the second visit to answer her own questions about what biodesign's like. So at this point, we're trying to convince her that this is the place to come. So keep your fingers crossed. We're hoping that will work out. And then we're also in the midst of potentially looking for someone to kind of manage the team building the CXFEL over in Building C. And Bob Kendall is someone who does ultra-fast material science, an outstanding physicist and one with a lot of knowledge about these sorts of large facilities. And he will be coming back. I don't know, do we have, yeah, we have a date listed there. So keep your eye out for that. He'll be giving a talk in large part to talk to the physics community about the stuff that he's doing. Got to get my tea here. We've been working for the last year or so, maybe a little bit more than that, on developing relationships with a couple of institutions in China to set up institutes at their universities that look very much like the Biodesign Institute. Probably the most advanced of those relationships right now is one with Soochow University, which is in Chengdu, China. Soochow University, in many ways, is a sister institution for ASU. First of all, we already have a relationship with Soochow University, so there's already programs in place between the two institutions. But also, it is kind of on the western side of the country. So most of the big, famous universities in China are all along the eastern seaboard, much like the United States. But this particular one is on the west. It's the best university on that part of the country, and it's in the top 6 universities in the country at large. Soochow University also has China's top medical school, so it's the #1 rated medical school, and its Huaxi Hospital is the #1 rated research hospital in the country of China. So it's a really outstanding university. We've visited a couple times. They have visited us a couple of times, and we have a draft agreement that has largely acceptable to both institutions. So with doing some I dotting and T crossing, we think that we'll be able to get that agreement signed in the next few months and really establish centers that we hope will span the ocean. So there'll be scientists at both institutions who are working in the same center towards a common goal. And the hope would be that scientists would be able to go back and forth between the two countries. Perhaps, if you want to do some research on samples that don't exist in the United States, spend 6 months in China and work on them at that university, collect that data, and then do a joint paper together or something like that. So we're pretty excited about that. It's coming along. Stay tuned. In the meantime, we're also working with the university, Soochow University, which is in Suzhou, China, which is just an hour or so outside of Shanghai in Jiangsu province. And it's also an older university. One of their big claims to fame is that they're very much an up-and-coming university and especially good for commercializing things. So they have an area called Bio Bay just outside the university, which is one of the largest industrial parks in China and has a huge number of startup companies in it. And they have worked out all the a lot of sort of factors that accelerate the development of companies within the country. So if folks are developing science that they think would be cool to take to market in China, that would be a conduit with which to do that. Okay, I do want to mention a little bit about Campaign 2020. You've probably been following this a little bit. ASU has been on a campaign for a number of years of raising philanthropy money for the university, and each of the units within the university has had a charge to raise a certain amount of money. Biodesign was charged with raising $40 million. And as you may notice here, we have vastly exceeded that goal. So we've done very well with that. I can't say too much right now about some of the big donations that Biodesign has received, but I will tell you as a teaser that you should sort of keep an eye out because you'll be hearing about them soon. President Crow will probably be coming by to talk about some really phenomenal donations that have come our way that will really advance some of the science at Biodesign. Is there anything more I need to say about that, Carrie? Okay. All right. Yeah, so this is just emphasizing that point. So we are 173% to goal. So we've done very well. We're quite proud of Okay, so I'm going to spare my voice now and bring up Steve Monk, and he will be doing the Deputy Director's report.
All right, thanks, Josh. As I think many of you know, in 2014, Petra Pharma conceived of a small X-ray light source to do similar things to what is done at the Stanford Linear Accelerator, but at a university scale. So she convinced President Crow that we needed to do this. Biodesign C was part of that because it needed a home. Well, Biodesign C is now built and the basement is ready for it. They didn't wait for construction To begin on the instrument for Biodesign C, construction began at MIT. So since we now have a home for it, that instrument is on its way here. 4 of 5 shipments have arrived. The final shipment will be on site by the 1st of March. They're just finishing some commissioning activities around the Klystron amplifier system. We anticipate that electrons will fly and the instrument will be commissioned by the end of this calendar year, and the first experiments will begin to be conducted in the basement starting in 2020. The areas that that instrument will be very useful for will be soft tissue medical imaging, structural biology, things that of course are very near and dear to Petra's heart, and we'll be able to look at material science, in particular quantum materials, which will be useful to design novel quantum computers, which rely on the spin of electrons to store information. So here you have a photograph of one of the trucks. It's actually a very complicated move, engineered by Mark Hall. He did an excellent job here. The truck here has actually got air cushions to keep all the optics stable as it went bumping across the country. So 4 of 5 trucks are here safely and now occupying our basement. If you look at the photograph on the right, you see a small yellow round object. That's actually the beginning of the beam. That's the electron gun, which generates the electrons which will go flying down the linear accelerator. I'd like to give you a little bit of a safety reminder. We've been very fortunate and very competent here in biodesign. We haven't had any major incidents, but of course in a laboratory there can be such incidents. Here you see an example of one that happened late summer of last year at the Pacific Northwest Laboratory. An experiment was set up and during the middle of the night an explosion occurred, doing substantial damage to equipment. Now fortunately it was in the middle of the night and no workers were injured. But there are some lessons to be learned here. I think the biggest lesson is to conduct a hazard review prior to initiation of an experiment so you have a sense of what you might anticipate for potential hazards as you're doing your work. What they should have done here is avoided flammable gases near heat sources. That's what actually caused the detonation. They should have used a minimum amount of gas for the experiment rather than just have a large cylinder sitting right next to a heat source. So you can see substantial damage. This photograph here is actually a metal cylinder that totally blew open. So we have had a very good record here, and to encourage people to use proper PPE so they get to go home in the same condition that they arrived in at the end of the day, we've initiated the SIPs for Science Awards, which are a little coupon good for a treat in the Biodesign Cafe. We're happy to report that we've managed to give out 37 awards since the 1st of September. The safety committee is going around from center to center looking for people compliant with PPE requirements. As you see on the right there, one of our colleagues is wearing proper PPE with eye protection. Long hair is pulled out of the way of the experiment. A lab coat and gloves are being worn, as are closed-toed shoes. So the winner is Personalized Diagnostics with the largest number of PPE awards, 10, followed by immunotherapy, vaccines, and virotherapy, and environmental biotechnology. The safety committee is continuing to do tours looking for people to reward, so please wear your PPE for your own safety and to get a chance to win a treat from the Bio Cafe. And I think with that, my job is to introduce our next speaker, Kerry Robinson.
Great. Well, I'm excited to share a few new programs that we have going on here at the Biodesign Institute, and it's all possible through philanthropic funding. So I don't know if any of you were here several years ago when Marty Wojcik was here at the Biodesign Institute. Well, he has endowed biodesign as part of his personal legacy. This fund that will be for a scholarship for a biodesign student each year. So we're very excited about that. So we hope that we'll have students apply. And we're glad that we have some gifts that in perpetuity will pay out year over year. Next is student travel grants. Do we have any students here who applied for a travel grant, either the first cycle or the second cycle? Raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay, well, then we need to get the word out. So we have funds available up to $500 to help students who are participating in a scientific conference. Whether that's presenting a poster or speaking, we have funds available for that. It's reviewed 3 times a year by a faculty committee, and you'll notice Sun Devil Giving Day there at the bottom. Now, I'm pointing that out because at Sun Devil Giving Day, which is March 21st, it's kind of our opportunity to give back to Biodesign and to ASU. So just know that there's a way, if you choose to give a gift on that day, it comes right back. You can either apportion that to your own individual center that feeds directly back to your center director to be administered by him or her, or you can choose to make a gift to Sun Devil Giving Day. So kind of neat that those funds come right back to us. So we're supporting ASU, but they can benefit us here, our students, our people here at Biodesign. So remember that day. It's a Thursday, March 21st. Another thing that we're excited about, and Abby Elsener. Abby, are you in this room? Oh, Abby, will you stand up? I forgot to tell her. So Abby Elsener is here, and she is our dedicated associate director from the ASU Foundation. And this is a brand new program. As you know, we're hosting an incredible event of science and magic later tonight. And we're finding that as people are coming to these events, they keep saying, how do I become a member? How do I do more? How can I learn more about biodesign? How can I meet some of your scientists face to face? So as part of that, we have established a Pioneers Circle. So these are individuals that want to give a gift of $1,000 or more every year to Biodesign to be able to have kind of a sneak peek and front row seats and some other kinds of perks available to them. So looking forward to joining. We've got a handful of people, about 7 verbal commitments, and we've got several checks in hand too. So we already have several members of our Biodesign Pioneer Circle. So we'll have that grow over time with Abby's help. And the final thing that I want to bring up is Fusion. We have our scientific retreat coming up on Friday, March 22nd. And hopefully, who remembers getting an invitation in your inbox this very day? Raise your hand. Okay, should see lots and lots of hands. Okay, good. So this is right around the corner, coming up soon. There's so much to look forward to. We're going to try at a new venue. We've been at 3 or 4 years at one spot. We're going to try a new place. And so Friday, February 22nd, students, any students who attend, your abstract is due very soon. So you're going to get a lot of information. Julie Kurth. Julie, everyone knows Julie, you're awesome. Julie's handling that, but you'll want to start thinking about your abstracts and getting your information submitted soon. But otherwise, just look forward to an incredible day. Lots of biodesign scientific presenters in the morning. We've got our rapid fire session, poster session, and this year, for the first year ever, students get to participate in kind of a hackathon. They're going to hack some biodesign solutions for us, and we're looking forward to their input. So with that, I look forward to seeing you there. And now I get to turn it over to Tamara, our Chief Operations Officer.
Thank you, Carrie. So I just have a few updates. Buildings, space. That's sort of, I do other stuff sometimes, but this is mostly what I get to do. So Biodesign space updates, I just want to let a couple of, make a couple announcements just so you know, we're, as you all know, we're in recruiting season. So we have several new potential faculty who have been touring the Institute, thinking about joining various centers. So we will go through another fun exercise of space movement and accommodating all of our new colleagues. So just wanted to make sure you guys all knew about that ahead of time. And I want to give a shout out to Mike and his team who are around here for all the work that they do. There they are, right, and they're in the middle. So thanks to you guys for making that as easy as possible, and we're excited to have some new colleagues with us. We also are welcoming Rolf Center, Environmental Health Engineering, back into Biodesign, so they're making their way over from IST before, so they'll be joining us here in the next few months. And also, just so that everyone knows, Biodesign C has been a confusing building sometimes because it's Biodesign, but then there's people in there that aren't Biodesign. Just want to make sure you know that's going to continue. We have a couple of new temporary occupants coming in on their way to other buildings. So while we're waiting for ISTB 7 to get off the ground and a few other projects, we'll be welcoming some new colleagues. So Klaus Lochner will be joining us on the first floor, and he's really cool carbon capture I mean, feel free to like make friends and collaborate with these folks. There's no reason why you can't. And then Greg Asner, who's a big climate scientist, will be joining us on the 5th floor. So just want to make sure that you know the building's going to get fuller, but I have committed to Josh that I will empty it back out again before he needs the space. So that's going on as we speak as well. So a lot of activity this month looking at research data. So after a temporary hiatus of being able to tell what we were doing in research, it's all back online, thanks to heroic efforts by a number of people, but we had a little bit of a hiatus due to new enterprise systems. So I just wanted to remind everyone how that works, since Josh is asking you for Josh is asking center directors for information, who are then turning to ask for you for information. So a couple different things. One thing I just want to make sure you know, and we've got our road team over here so they can help you wherever you need to. Every bit of your recognition for research activity here at the Institute is dependent on that form you fill out at proposal submission time. So there's no other magic sauce. We don't go out and like find out who's in Biodesign and gather up their activity. So I just want to make sure you know, if you're looking at reports that are being generated and going, but my blah, blah, blah is not on this report, it's likely that you didn't recognize Biodesign when you were submitting. So Lacey and her team try really hard to make sure that we do that, but I just want to make sure you know, whatever the recognition that's on your proposal follows that all the way through awards and expenditures. So when you're signing your proposals and reading them carefully before you submit them, can you just make sure you look at that page? Because it's important. So just want to make sure that you know that. Second of all, there are two different award amounts, obligated amounts and anticipated amounts. Anticipated is, I got a $3 million award. Obligated is, they told me I could spend $500,000 now. So just so you know, when we report awards, we actually report the obligated amount, not the anticipated amount. So please don't think we're trying to shortchange you. It's just that we want to count it sort of as we get the ability to spend it over time. So when you see things and they're not right, just know that's the reason why. It's because we're giving you just the obligated amount that you have. So just thought that would be good for you all to understand, and it will save Ryan and Marcia and Lacey and her team a whole bunch of answering questions for individuals if you all know how that works. So if you have any questions or concerns about how that works, those should be directed to me. All right, new buildings. So I'll start with HSIC, which is our Health Solutions Innovation Campus. Does everybody remember where that is? Trivia? I've presented on this no less than 7 times, okay? Out by the Mayo building. Okay, so that's where our Health Solutions Innovation Campus, so that is already broken ground and on its way. And then Wexford is I don't know that I fully appreciated how cool this was, but I was informed by President Crow. So this is actually a speculative research building. So it's a public-private partnership. This actually doesn't happen very often. It means that we have an outside investor that has very high hopes for the downtown Phoenix area and its booming research activity. So we are an anchor tenant in that building. And so what I want you all to think about, and I'll ask again now because you couldn't even remember where the building was, those are meant to be our translational outposts for Biodesign. So those of you who have startup companies know how super friendly I am about renting space in this building to your startup companies, which I'm not because they're primarily dedicated to research, but we will have 2 different accelerator functions, both downtown and out at Mayo. Great ecosystem for startups, trying to figure out a way where you could have an academic lab right next to your startup lab. So I really want to make sure that as you have ideas about how that might be helpful, because we really want to emphasize the translational mission of Biodesign, that we have not 1, but 2 new buildings going up that will hopefully be able to help you with those aspirations. And I will, instead of saying, no, you're not allowed to, we'll be like, here, let me direct you over here to this awesome solution. So I'm looking forward to those buildings being done. And ISTB 7 is kind of underway. So turns out we have a big giant nitrogen line under that site that we have to figure out where to move it to. So that is the activity that you see going on over there as we're in a heated discussion with numbers of partners about moving the nitrogen line, but that building is well into design documents and will be going up swiftly after we deal with that, but it is probably, we're still hoping for 2020. It just may be more like December as opposed to July, but that's where we're at. And then our newest building, we just can't like stop winning with it. So it is a really incredible building. So the one that I think is the coolest, so E&R, we won back in November the best project in the Southwest. Then they announced us as the best higher education research project in the country. And that was one of 16 awards out of 800 submissions or something like that. And now we're in the top 3 projects in all categories in the nation. So I know, right? I've been telling people that's the first building I was ever associated with, so I think I have to quit now because I don't know how we're going to do much better than that. But we're going to try. But so you have a building you can be very proud of. I hope we're competing against like an energy plant and like a road construction I mean, like, how could we not win? So we think we're going to win, but I'll let you all know in March because that's when we find out. So that's the operations updates. And now I'm turning it over to Elena for HR updates.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to give a few quick HR updates for you. This is my slide. Updates are very brief. So this team here is the team that you interface with when you're recruiting and hiring, payroll, employment visas, leaves of absence, any employee changes that flow through the organization. This is the team that you interface with. And we added a new function for our team last July of engagement and professional development. And that is led by Laura Boyd. She joined our team in July. And Laura is focused on delivering professional development programs and resources to our workforce. So, for example, the supervisor training series that is underway right now. There's 4 workshops in this series. The first one was Organizing Your Team, presented by Drew Brown in Research Technology Office. And Drew was presenting on how to use Microsoft Teams application to organize your teams. Some of the other topics to follow are performance management, attracting and retaining and hiring the best employees, as well as understanding and managing the compensation of your employees. So those training classes are available right now. The first one is ongoing. You can sign up through researchacademy.asu.edu. The next thing I'd like to talk about briefly is performance management. As you know, we have an annual performance evaluation. We are shifting away from an annual performance review to a more frequent discussions and feedback between employees and supervisors. So the idea here is that those discussions are already happening and between employees and supervisors. And also, employees benefit a whole lot more through the guidance that they're receiving on an ongoing basis throughout the year, rather than getting to the end of the year, looking back and being evaluated on performance. So we want to shift to more of a coaching type of a format that's more ongoing. So that'll help all of us get the skills and guidance that we need in order to advance. Last topic. So we are partnering with the Gallup Organization. So most of you, I'm sure, familiar with Gallup through Gallup polls. Well, Gallup also happens to be an expert in the employee engagement area. So they've done an extensive amount of research in employee engagement. And so Gallup is coming in and they're working with our team to help us understand employee engagement as well. And the research that Gallup has done, they've focused on researching the employees that are thriving in their careers and thriving in their jobs. And they've discovered that employment experience and the conditions for and the relationships between employees, their coworkers and supervisors are different, obviously, than the employees that are not thriving. So we're going to focus on all those conditions, and Gallup is going to help us introduce programs and resources to assist and affect employee engagement. One of the main areas you're going to hear about with Gallup as well is the idea of strengths and natural talents. So that's one piece of the engagement puzzle, is if an employee is in a position where they can actually play to their natural talents and strengths, they're going to be more successful than the employee that doesn't have that opportunity. So one of the resources that we have in the HR department is the Gallup Strengths Assessment. That's available to all of you. It's an online assessment. And once you're aware of your natural strengths and talents, you will also have the opportunity to sit down with a certified Gallup coach to help you understand how you can apply those strengths and talents in your jobs. So Laura Boyd has finished her Gallup certification. She's a certified Gallup Strengths coach. I'm in the process of receiving my certification, followed by Miranda Pratt. Most likely Yolanda will be next. So anyway, those are my HR updates. Thank you. Who's next? Heidi Gracie and Julie Kurth.
Thanks, Elena. That was really interesting. I love the Gallup stuff. That's cool. So good afternoon. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Heidi Gracie. I'm the Executive Director of Strategic Marketing for the Knowledge Enterprise. So I work with many of you on a daily or monthly basis, but for those of you that I haven't yet met or worked with, I just wanted to introduce myself. I also work very closely with the team here, Diane, Julie, Richard, Shireen, and Jean Claire. Many of you work with them every day. I guess I'm in charge of the next one. Oops. Well, they're all my slides. Yeah, I know. Woohoo! So first off, I just want to make sure my name's Heidi Gracie. When you have a name like that, you go by Gracie or you go by Heidi, but just so you know who I am. So you can email me questions afterwards, because sometimes with marketing, the questions come later. Recently, I don't know if many of you have seen this, but there have been some high-profile biodesign marketing elements out there. One has been the Fulton Center Prism poster that was hanging up, and you've seen a couple of the light rails rolling around town. Also, when you walked in this afternoon, there are 2 printed pieces that are also available to you digitally. One is the Biodesign Legacy of Discovery Timeline. The other one is the 2018 Biodesign Year in Review, some of the big highlights that the researchers, all of you have done here with your research. So that is highlighted in the 2018 Year in Review. Again, they're also available digitally, so you can share with colleagues, or if you're working with others that need to know, hey, what's going on over there? The other thing is the Asu Thrive Magazine. As you know, Thrive Magazine goes out to about 500,000 people every quarter. There will be a biodesign piece in that. Before we go on to the next slide, I also wanted to talk to you about other distribution or communication channels that are going to be available to the biodesign community. That is the PBS Catalyst series. Series 2 has just started. So if you're interested in being featured in that, please let me know. Also, there are KED Talks, which are videos. There are TEDx ASU Talks, as well as podcasts. Some people or some researchers are very comfortable in audio work with podcast. Others are interested in video. Others are interested in print. So please know that we're working on all of those channels for each of you. If you have a preference, please let me know. I'd like to invite my colleague up, Julie Kurth, to talk to you about 2 very important pieces of the puzzle. One is, as Kerry mentioned with Fusion, several of you will have posters on how we're working now with the print lab, because I think there has been some patterns of being able to have posters done here. Now we have something a little bit easier and quicker for you, which works with print lab, as well as the Biodesign Intranet, which will be launching very soon, and how it benefits you and what you get from it. So Julie, do you have a second? Thanks. Thank you.
I always have a second for my boss. Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Kurth, Marketing Manager. I've been here around a while, so I know most of you, but for the new people, welcome to Biodesign. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how we're expanding our print services. So anybody know that we have an ASU print and imaging lab on the Polytechnic campus? Okay, many of you, I'm sure, have used them before. So we are expanding our services by using them for all of our large format printing and other printing needs. So rather than doing it on site, we're doing it with them. So we are lucky that they are matching our prices. So it's $6 to $8.50 per square foot. So it's pretty similar to what we were charging here. And you have more choices. So paper, different types of papers, fabrics, finishes, and it can print directly on foam core, although that's not sustainable. They also deliver every single day to all of our ASU campuses. So if you need something, their turnaround time is about 3 days. So students write down 3 days. It's very difficult for students sometimes. So the 3 days is faster than the 5 days that we had offered before. All right, so you can upload files directly to print.asu.edu, and this week we have the Print Lab team actually here exhibiting in the break room tomorrow, in between A and B, the first floor break room, around lunchtime, and then tomorrow they'll be over in the C lobby. We don't want to forget anybody. So if you want to see their fabrics or see, their website or anything like that, meet them. They will be here at Biodesign tomorrow and Wednesday or Thursday. All right. So has anybody noticed that we're growing? Growing. Run into new people all the time. So that's a good problem, but we want to keep close-knit as we grow. And to do that, we need a portal where we all can have a central resource. Kind of keep us on the same page, if you will. So we are launching a brand new intranet. Has anybody been to our old one? Seen how old it is? It's really old. It looks like it's from the 80s. So we are updating it, and our new one is amazing. I think you're going to be very excited. We launch March 25th and begin testing on the 1st. We are looking for testers. We're also looking for ideas to name the site, which I'm really eager to hear about your creative ideas. So the neat part about the portal is you can tailor what you see. So based on your job role or student role, when you log in, it will automatically give you tools that you need for your role. You can subscribe to your favorite content. You can add links. You can comment on articles. You can rate articles. You can contribute articles. You can contribute photos. So this is really a good place to put unique processes for your own team. Something that your team members need to reference. Journal club calendar items, all of this stuff that maybe doesn't belong on the public website because you're not inviting the public to it, is a great place to put it here. Team photos from your parties, things like that, which should go here. Quick polls, idea generation, and also matchmaker for grants. Maybe you have a great expertise and you're new and you're looking for somebody else to partner with on a grant. This would be a good tool for you. All right, so that is about the intranet. So you get to it, just like you get to our current intranet, when we're ready to launch on the 25th, you will go to the public website, and down in the corner, it'll say Employee Intranet, and you click on that. So that everybody knows the public website. Can't forget that. And then we'll also be making lots of announcements about contests, it's coming, so you won't be able to miss it. All right, thank you. And who's next? Do you remember who's next? Josh.
All right. Oh, okay. So, right. So it's my pleasure to, and I'm going to butcher your name. I'm sorry, Carrie. Because we're going to invite our 7 minutes of science speaker. This is Carrie Kyler Samarot. Did I get that close? Okay. All right. And she's going to, and she will give a presentation on her work. She just arrived very recently. Yeah. So fresh off the presses. All right. Can you do it with this, or do you want a lavalier?
Oh, no, this is great. Is there a clicker?
This is the clicker. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Carrie Kyler Samarati, very close. I'm really excited for this opportunity to tell you a little bit about my research. My research is motivated by a desire to be able to predict the impact of genetic changes on an organism. And I think this is a goal that many biodesign researchers share. So for example, a lot of biologists here are interested in identifying the genetic changes that allow tumors or microbial populations to resist drug treatment. And I think other researchers here want to identify genetic changes that help organisms adapt to climate change. And of course, a major goal of modern biology is identifying genetic changes that contribute to human disease. So identifying the purpose, I guess, of identifying the genetic changes that underlie these important phenomena isn't just to make predictions, for example, predictions about who's at high risk of disease, but the purpose is also to learn about the basic biology. So understanding what genes and pathways and cellular processes are involved in processes like human disease and drug resistance can teach us a lot about the basic biology of those processes. So I don't think I need to spend too much time convincing this audience that mapping a genetic change to its ultimate impact on an organism is a really important and widespread goal within our discipline. It's also a really challenging goal. So we're still having a lot of trouble with this. We can't sequence a person's genome and predict their risk of developing heart disease. And we can't sequence a tumor and determine exactly how it's going to respond to drug treatment. I think that it's really hard for people outside of our discipline to understand what the holdup is. So far, hundreds of thousands of human genomes have been fully sequenced, and millions of people have been genotyped by 23andMe. So why can't we use all of this genetic data to gain more insights about these processes that we care about, like human health? I think a big reason is that genes don't act inside of a vacuum. They act inside of cells where they interact with other genes and other molecules. And what this means is that the impact of a single genetic change is highly dependent on what other genetic variation an organism possesses. And it's also dependent on environmental factors. And there's just a lot of variables to consider. So even if we have a ton of genetic and life history data, we often don't have enough statistical power to associate a genetic change with its ultimate impact on an organism. So what do? How do we make progress pinpointing the impact of a genetic change? My proposal is that we stop thinking about it this way. And instead of trying to pinpoint the impact of a genetic change on an organism, we try to understand what forces can modify the potential spectrum of impacts that a genetic change may have. So this is not the same as remeasuring the impact of a genetic change in every possible context. For example, there's 3 billion base pairs in the human genome. If we were to test how each genetic change depended on every other, it would take quite a while. So no, the goal is to understand the rules that define the spectrum of impacts that a particular genetic change may have. And I think these rules are actually reflections of the way cellular systems are organized. So for example, every cellular system I can think of, from bacteria to humans, has genes that are organized into regulatory networks. So you can imagine that maybe you have a genetic change here in green that is unassociated with the disease. And here you have another change in pink that's not associated with disease. And you might be surprised to learn that these genetic changes combine to contribute to disease. Or this interaction may not surprise you at all if you knew that these two genes interacted in a regulatory network. So if we take a step back, we can think about some generic rules that dictate how the structure of a gene regulatory network might modify the impact of genetic changes. For example, imagine you have mutations to a gene that's highly connected to other genes. Well, the impacts of those mutations might be really dependent on the functioning of those other genes. But then let's say you have mutations to a gene that's way out on the outskirts of this network with very few connections. Well, the impacts of those mutations might not be so dependent. Maybe they're easier to predict. So one of the major projects in my lab is understanding how the structure of these regulatory networks can modify the impact of mutations. The other major project in my lab focuses on understanding how common costs of protein production modify the spectrum of impacts that a mutation may have. So again, in every cell system I can think of, from bacteria to humans, there are genes that encode proteins that need to fold in order to function. And when these proteins can't fold, we know that it's bad. Misfolded proteins lead to things like Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease. But how many misfolded proteins does it take before cell health starts to really decline? Well, if we knew the answer to that question, we might be able to make better predictions about when you have two genetic changes that each on their own don't seem to do very much, but they combine to have a pretty devastating effect on cells. So because I study how these very basic properties of cells modify the spectrum of effects a genetic change may have, I can study this question in any cellular system I want, whichever one gives me the most power. So I run a wet lab, and my model organism of choice is budding yeast. And yeast has two superpowers that I take advantage of. The first is that gene editing technology works really well. So I can design a panel of thousands of mutant strains, each one with a single mutation or a combination of mutations of my choice. I can focus on mutations that contribute to protein misfolding. I can focus on mutations restricted to a particular regulatory network. The next step is to then measure the impact of these mutations, and that's where yeast's second superpower comes in. So I don't have to measure the impacts one at a time. I can use a technology called DNA barcoding to combine all of these strains together and simultaneously measure their relative impacts on yeast cell growth rate. So to summarize, I use these very high throughput technologies in yeast to understand how basic features of cells modify the spectrum of impacts that a genetic change may have. And my main goal is to be able to make more accurate predictions about the impacts of genetic change. So just to give you a really high impact example, we know that tumor cells have a lot of misfolded proteins. So is it possible that tumor cells exist at this kind of critical threshold where their evolution is constrained because most mutations are going to kind of push them past that threshold into a bad place? To answer this evolutionary question, we need to know a lot more about basic cell biology, in particular how cell health scales with the number of misfolded proteins. So in a nutshell, I'm an evolutionary biologist who got really interested in cell biology. And I think I'm very fortunate to have a home in the Center for Mechanisms of Evolution because it's one of the few places that merges these two disciplines. So thanks for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions later.
All right, we're going to keep moving on. Thank you. That was great. That was awesome. All right. And now we get to the part that we've all been waiting for, the recognition. We have a lot to cover today, so we're going to do a somewhat briefer version of this than we've done in the past, just to kind of keep the flow moving. So how are you doing this? Am I just... You're going first. I'm going first. Okay, you're going to tell me when it's your turn then, right?
I'll push you out of the way.
Okay, so we first of all, several different categories to thank some of the centers who've really excelled in the last little bit. So the first one is in proposals. So one of the things that we've been asking the centers to do is to increase their proposal rate. And as you can see, there were 6 centers that had more than 25 million in proposals in the last 18 months. And they're all listed here. So let's thank those centers for all that hard work. There have been a number of people who've had some recent awards in fiscal 2019. And they're listed here. I don't know if any of you people are here. So Salvo or Antonella, Salvo I saw here. Stand up, stand up. Antonella, Nick Stephanopoulos, Rizal Haradi, and Ben Reedhead.
Ben's right there.
Where's Ben? There's Ben, yeah, thank you. Okay, and then we also want to thank centers that have had more than $2 million in annual expenditures. I call this the big spender category. So we want to thank these centers plus centers that have had 20% increase in the number of investigators with awards in calendar year 2018. So those are the centers there. So we want to thank those guys. Okay, I see now. Okay, and now I hand it to Tamara.
Don't go anywhere, though. Because I'm up here because I'm here to recognize Josh LeBaire for being named Fellow of the National Academy of Inventors. So congratulations, Josh. We figured we would spare him the, allow myself to congratulate myself. Okay, we have a long roster of these, so we can go. So Sid Heck was named a senior member. They have now an inaugural class of senior members of the National Academy of Inventors. So is Sid here? All right, well, we'll jump because we have two of those. NJ Tao is also in that group. They're all off inventing things. Do you want to take that over?
Okay, all right. This is a really big deal. The Edson family donated money to the university and wanted to create an endowed professorship in dementia research. And Salvo Odo was named the endowed professor. Salvo. Okay, and then Hinsby Cadillo Quiros received an NSF Career Award to study greenhouse gases. Are you here, Hinsby? Okay. Chao Wang from the Center for Molecular Design and Biomimetics received an NSF Career Award to label-free detection of exosomal microRNA biomarkers. Chao, are you here? Okay. And then also molecular design and biomimetics, Nick Stephanopoulos and Rizal Hariati both received NIH New Innovator Awards in 2018. That's a big deal. And many of you may not realize, but Samira Kiani and Mo Ebrahim Khani have joined Biodesign. They will be in my center, and Samira was just awarded a AAAS Leshner Fellowship with focus on human augmentation. So we're going to bring that. Okay, and then, in the past, it was always awkward because we would read this whole list of names of all the people who had either a patent awarded this year or a paper in a high-impact journal. And it took a very long time, and so to try to shorten that time frame, we're going to go this direction. So all of these people, if you're in this, because there were a lot of you this last bit, we're growing, please stand up. If you see your face there, please stand up. Come on, there's more of you. Yeah. There's a paper version of this that you can read that has a list of all of these different wonderful publications and also the patents that were awarded. So please have a look at all that. But all these people have done some fine work here. Okay, we are going to move on to Alma. Where's Alma?
Hello, it's so nice to be in front of everybody. I know I've met many faces working here with events and biodesign. And I just want to talk about how now we have event support. We have Dorinda, Tanisa, Brandon, so they're kind of in the back and you'll see them around here around biodesign. So we just have a larger team. We're here to help you with all your needs. We're going to have a brown bag on March 5th. It's going to be an AL 1014. We'll be promoting that. Just a chance for you to stop by if you have any questions, if you have any events coming up, logistics, need help with rooms, catering. We're here to help you. So we just want to meet and greet everybody and make sure that you know that we're here to help. And then we have Open Door coming up February 23rd from 1 to 6. We have 42 activities this year. We've expanded to the patio, so we will be out and about. And so we have the Open Door, and then that'll be a great event. I'll be around handing out t-shirts. If you sign up to volunteer, you'll get one of bright gold t-shirts, so everybody will be able to see us. Upcoming events, we have the Open Door, Sun Devil Giving Day, and Fusion Retreat. So looking forward to working with all of you.
Yeah, and just a quick comment. So this year, Open Door is not going to go into the late evening the way it has in the past. So it's going to be a bit more of an afternoon activity, just to remind people that it's changed a little bit. And I mentioned this earlier, but this is just a reminder to say it again. We will be doing after hours. We're just going to do it on a separate day from today so that everybody has a chance to get in there. And also, I'm just going to briefly mention an event that's happening this evening. It's an Rsvp event, so it may be a little bit late, although who knows, there might be seats. Parag Malik is an old friend of mine. He's an associate professor at Stanford, a brilliant computer scientist, and mathematical modeler, as well as he does some proteomics. But he also happens to be a world-class magician. He's actually a member of the Magic Castle in Hollywood. I don't know if any of you are magic aficionados, but getting into there is... Yeah. So getting into that is a big deal. You have to audition to get in. And he's going to be doing a lecture on the history of science and magic, because in years past, magicians and scientists were often very close. And of course, that doesn't make sense because, magicians are all about deceiving you, right? And science is all about finding the truth. But in fact, there is a lot in common. And I think one of the things that Parag wants to talk about is how our brains are always trying to deceive us. And as scientists, one of our jobs is to get past that and be able to think around the way our brains are trying to fool us. So he'll be doing a combination of a lecture and a magic show over in the Marston Auditorium starting at 5:30. But as I said, it is, hopefully most of you have signed up for it. If you haven't, keep your eye open for another event, or if we're lucky, there might be an extra seat or two, who knows. At this point, we are at the end of our formal presentation, and we are reached the point for taking questions. So anybody brave souls want to stand up and ask a question, or if not, please feel free to pass down the cards that you've written your questions on. It's always so quiet at this point. All right, yes.
If you do move forward with some sort of regular check-ins, could you check, I think, address your flows, and maybe you could check in and make sure that it ties in with whatever we would be required to do with sponsored review of our people?
Absolutely, Carol, we certainly will. Yeah.
So, repeat the question. Okay, so the question was related to potential sponsor requirements on development plans that, according to the AAAS guidelines, versus what we're talking about doing here at ASU in terms of modifying our performance management. So those have actually always been two separate things. So what Elena was referring to was the ASU required performance evaluation. We've been offering and will continue to offer the tools that are associated with creating development plans specifically on the scientific track. So whatever those requirements are, we will continue to meet them. And really, we're talking about shifting what is required by ASU as opposed to what is available to people to take advantage of from a development perspective. Does that make sense? That you will find, we are hoping that we're going to drive the process, that there'll be a lot more flexibility in the ASU process where you could take some of the same material that you're using for the development plans and use it in the ASU process. Whereas right now, because that's so rigid, there isn't much flexibility to be able to do that. I think you'll find that the new system will provide more flexibility for that. We're hopeful, right? Okay.
Other questions? Okay, well, if there's no other questions, thank you so much for coming. We'll be seeing you again in the fall, and sooner than that at the next after hours.